my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
If you look on the right side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done, that is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
What?
a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh my... What?
Bill Maher tore into NPR for its supposedly neutral reporting in a clash that was as brutal as it was hilarious, exposing the gap between the public image the network cultivates, promising unbiased news and the reality of its openly slanted coverage. Even though NPR's leanings aligned more closely with Maher's own views, he didn't let them off the hook, mercilessly skewering the network for failing at the very standard it prides itself on delivering: a sharp, witty, and unforgettable...
NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them for... The Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
Bluntly declaring that NPR and PBS are firmly anchored on the far left, despite whatever denials their leadership might offer, pointing to undeniable evidence like April 2024, when NPR's senior editor, Yuri Berliner, admitted the network had fully surrendered to the progressive agenda on insider confession, not right-wing spin. And later, NPR chief Catherine Maher acknowledged they had skipped the Hunter Biden laptop story at a critical moment, leaving audiences to wonder if it was a mistake or a cover-up. By 2025, Congress had also scrutinized NPR and PBS for their relentless focus on race, gender, and identity, making claims of neutrality laughable, and Maher mercilessly torched them for choosing sides, delivering a scorching critique that left no room for excuses.
I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
I've got to say, I agree with Maher. PBS and NPR, heavily funded by taxpayer dollars, are inherently vulnerable to political influence, and once that money flows in, whoever holds power left or right can steer the narrative to suit their agenda, turning what starts as public broadcasting into government-approved messaging, where soft influence dangerously borders on outright propaganda.
I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing?" And I said, "What do you mean the same thing?" And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, "It's always about how somebody can't do something." And that what she was getting at was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now.
I've got to back Maher on this one. Take the lead up to last year's election. For example, when NPR relentlessly targeted Trump's campaign, amplifying every rally, stumble, and throwaway line nonstop, and even NPR's public editor admitted listeners were overwhelmed and complaining about slanted coverage. The twist is it often didn't feel like reporting at all, but more like a deliberate tactic to spotlight missteps, stir doubt, and pressure undecided voters. And if the goal was to wear down the middle and push them away from Trump, that's exactly how it came across.
NPR is crazy. Like this, you can't have a completely biased, one-sided media organization that's funded by the government and taxpayers. That's crazy. And they went over all the amount of people that were on NPR that were Democrats, and it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's like out of 87 people, it's 100%.
So, look at the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, so that none of that should be a surprise to anybody who's
But the New York Times is at
paying
least
half
a privately funded company.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's like NPR relied on tax money,
Yeah.
and there's this giant outrage that the government's going to defund.
That's insane. The Democrats really figured out how to stack the deck, especially when you learn that nearly 80% of NPR's newsroom leans Democrat. And remember, this isn't a private network where bias is expected. It's a taxpayer-funded news source, supported by the very citizens it's supposed to serve. So the bare minimum should be fairness, with at least a balanced split to guarantee diverse viewpoints. But instead, we get an echo chamber dominated by one side, leaving the other nearly invisible, slanting the news and eroding public confidence. And Maher calling it out only exposed just how deep that imbalance really runs.
Hey, the reality is the internet exists,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
don't need. You don't need to publicly fund something that's clearly biased
Right.
when the internet exists.
Right.
You can get whatever you want. If you want to just absorb and consume only left-wing media, there's so much available.
Right.
You can go find it. But our tax dollars should not be going to that.
No. And to be fair, if anybody wants to know what the hell's going on in the news, they can just listen to the President's Daily Brief podcast, frankly.
Your podcast.
I'm good, right?
Yeah,
That's
your
some.
thing.
Yeah, boy, I just stuck that in there.
I can't.
Joe Rogan nailed it. The internet has completely flipped the script, putting the world's news at your fingertips with nothing more than a phone, tablet, or even a basic laptop, eliminating the need to rely on state-backed networks or legacy media giants pushing their polished spin. That monopoly is gone, replaced by countless independent outlets where you can compare angles and form your own view. And while you have to sift through the noise, that's exactly the point. Choice, allowing you to uncover real journalism, honest investigations, and stories mainstream media won't touch, making the internet the one place where balance, freedom, and perspective are truly in your control. 111 miliar, 111 juta, 111.111. NPR may brand itself as neutral, but the evidence tells a different story. Scroll through their site, and it's clear that story's echoing. Democratic talking points get prime placement, while anything beneficial to Republicans is buried, watered down, or framed with doubt. And that isn't no coincidence. So when Trump argues that NPR and PBS should lose their funding, he isn't making it up. Because why should taxpayers bankroll a network that refuses to represent the full spectrum of political views in America? And if public money is involved, the public deserves fairness. Something NPR has yet to prove it earns, both in trust and in funding.
Show me a story that concerns you. That's fantastic.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
And then all this fat phobia and its racist past and present. Some white people may choose thumbs up because it feels neutral, but some academics argue that opting out, what does that mean? Thumbs up signals lax awareness about white privilege, akin to society associating whiteness with being raceless. What?
God.
What does that mean?
Or how about how racism became a marketing tool for country music?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
At the end of the day, NPR isn't about uncovering pure truth. It's about shaping how people think, spinning stories to steer audiences toward predetermined conclusions rather than presenting facts and letting viewers decide. And the ones who benefit most are clearly the Democrats, as NPR consistently mirrors progressive narratives while marginalizing opposing voices, turning what should be journalism into quiet indoctrination under the guise of a taxpayer-funded label, which is why critics argue the network has stopped acting as a public watchdog and become a megaphone for the woke point. Bill Maher didn't hesitate to call out, and
The truth is a distraction from getting things done. That is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
What?
a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh, my...
Maher hit the nail on the head. Today's media isn't focused on honesty or delivering facts, but is addicted to whatever looks wild, shiny, and guaranteed to go viral, with truth taking a back seat while drama dominates, turning slip-ups into breaking alerts and every policy debate into a circus, all driven by cash and cloud. Outrage fuels clicks, scandals trend endlessly, and exaggeration keeps the ratings machine alive, while fact-checking is an afterthought buried beneath the rush to blast headlines first, leaving a non-stop hype cycle where the goal isn't informing the public but entertaining at any cost. And Maher's warning is stark. When the press behaves more like reality TV than a source of truth, society pays the price. Because without real accuracy and responsibility, all that remains is noise, not news.
They blew the whole thing way out of proportion because, as always with media these days, they don't cover what's most important, just what's most fun to watch. There are 15.2 million college students in the U.S., and 2,300 have been arrested. That's 1/67th of 1%, and half of the ones in New York weren't even students. But we were given the false impression that these protesters are the voice of their generation, having found a cause for which they were willing to go to the tents and to the barricades. Oh, please, these kids are more violent when their team wins a championship.
Thrives on outrage and spectacle, feeding off conflict by spotlighting unrest and framing it as resistance against authority, turning a small protest of a few hundred into nationwide chaos and a minor street clash into violence everywhere. By inflating scale and drama, they create the illusion of disorder, planting doubt that leaders are in control, because it's not about truth but crafting storylines that hook viewers, with fear and anger selling far more than calm and stability, which is why cameras zoom in on shouting crowds, fistfights, and extreme clips, producing a distorted reality where minor dissent becomes a national crisisol for ratings. And as Bill Maher's critique of NPR underscores, today's media isn't about balance or facts but about agendas, spectacle, and control. With NPR leaning left and others chasing clicks, public trust is collapsing, and if this trend continues, propaganda won't just creep into journalism, it will replace it.